Okay, hi, this is Elliot Fishman, and hopefully I am live. One of the things, of course, when you're doing this is need to have good lighting. Unfortunately, this lighting is not the best. Let me try something else. Let me try something. I was about to move the computer, and so let me move the computer. A little bit of lighting here. Okay, see all my guys in the background. And hopefully I'm online now. It looks like I am. So welcome everybody to Facebook Live. And I'm getting this memo that yes, you are live. Okay, thank you. And so hope everybody's doing well. Let me just first go through the pleasantries of it all. And I know this is difficult times for everybody, whether in the U.S. or outside the U.S. And I think the uncertainty and the confusion and the concern for both for family and friends and yourself is really high. I think in some sense we have this kind of mix of emotions. So whether you need to be focusing only on the moment, which at times can be challenging, particularly people who are not feeling well, who are sick, people at the front lines, or should we be looking ahead? Some days, you can have this vision of looking ahead, getting post-COVID, and some days you feel like you're never going to get post-COVID. And we all know pre-January or pre-March or February, depending where you are when things went bad, what the world was like. And the question is, are you ever going to go back to what was, which was your basic normal existence? I think probably the answer is no. I think, and if you read and you listen when people talk about it, it's really going to be a new normal. And that's just the way it is. I mean, we can long for the good old days, but the reality is the new normal. And of course, the challenge is really what's the new normal? I mean, am I ever going to get a haircut? I had to comb my hair way back there, so it wouldn't be in my eyes. What's the new normal? And that really is in some ways the conversation we had. Now, Whitney Fishman Zember, who was also my daughter, spoke yesterday. She's very senior at Wavemaker in New York, speaking about how it's really hard to tell what exactly is going to change and not change. I think radiology is, and all the medicine and everything is undergoing massive change now. Some changes will go away, some changes will stay. If you looked on CTisus, I gave you the reference. There was an article published yesterday in Radiology, the journal Radiology, and it was from Howard Foreman and Associates at Yale, speaking about the impact of COVID on our practices. And I think whether you're in the West Coast or the East Coast or in between, and even in Europe, I was speaking to some friends in Germany today, the issue is that we are looking at a volume drop of something like 70 to 80%. Now, plain films, I had a conference call this morning with my team at Hopkins, is down about 30%, and because you do a lot of plain films in COVID patients and patients in the hospital, so, but CT, MR, ultrasound, 70, 80%, because there are no elective studies going to be done. Now, at some point, the elective studies need to be done. At some point, things will change. But this article by Howard Foreman was very knowledgeable on the subject of just, a lot of the technologies and utilization, is that things are not going to bounce back like it's a V. People were talking about the stock market, big crash and zip right back to where it was. That's not going to be the same way in medicine, because in many ways, the COVID thing is not going to be up and back. It's going to be, we're staying home now. People are staying home. We're flattening the curve. That's not the same thing as curing disease. You're flattening the curve. At some point, people will be getting out. Then the question is what happens to the curve. The trick was not to have the curve go up where all the resources and patients cannot be taken care of. Just think what happened in New York. You're opening hospitals or hospital-like places. You have a boat. You have the Javits Convention Center. You have Central Park. All of these things are extraordinary. So how do you get back to normal somewhere in between all that? Radiology, volume's down 80%. You got to think about that. What does that mean in terms of how many radiologists we need? People starting new jobs, residencies, fellowships, all the usual things that we take for granted happening July 1st. Will they happen July 1st or January 1st? I don't know the answer to that. That is going to be a challenge. I think this article by Foreman again talks about how the fact is things will not get back to, even at best, close to normal to 2021. And you saw articles yesterday. The governor of Maryland, the governor of New York, governor of California, basically said they can't imagine concerts happening till sometime in 2021. Now, concerts are just one little thing. I like going to concerts, but when are you going to go see Eric Clapton? 22,000 people, Madison Square Garden. You're just not going to. You can't even do a live show. Jimmy Kimmel, all of those shows that are on TV at night, the late night shows, people are filming the show from their living room or bedroom or kitchen or dining room. You can't have a live audience. You can't go into work. How do you change those things? And what's so that's a challenge. Now, I do tell people it's very easy to look at, Hopkins has this really famous chart now, that website that shows 2 million plus people with COVID. You can go crazy watching numbers. I always make the point that you don't want to be watching numbers constantly because, for whatever it is, whether you're watching elections, maybe you can watch that because it's over in a few hours perhaps. But things like the COVID thing, you can get so upset. I speak to many people who are really, really great people, and they will tell me the same thing as probably what you're feeling, is that some days you're up and some days you're down, and sometimes you're up and down in the same day. It's really hard, I think, being focused on things. I will tell people, and again, you could say, well, why are you looking ahead? Well, I think if you don't look ahead, you're in trouble. RSNA deadline is in a couple of weeks. Well, you could say, well, what am I working away to try to put together some abstract or a presentation? The odds are RSNA is not going to happen. Now, RSNA the other day said their goal is to open, but I love going to RSNA. I've done it for about 40 years in a row. But if I had to be honest, what's the chance of you going to a meeting with 50,000 of your closest friends, flying on planes, staying in a close contact space? I would say in November or December, that's just hard to imagine. It'd be wonderful if we do it, don't get me wrong, but it's hard to imagine. So you need to really be thinking about what is it that you could do that really gives you satisfaction and helps you move forward, knowing that there will be a time when you can't go forward. I think many people are afraid of job loss. Even our technologists and other technologists in Baltimore, many of the outpatient centers are closed. So before we were dying to hire people, now you have too many people, because if you drop 80% of the work, 5%, 10%, people start going crazy. 70, 80% is just astounding. Again, it will come back, but I don't think it's going to come back in a V. So this new normal of how many hours you work, how many people you need, how you get things done is something that's going to really be a problem. I think it'll be a challenge, and we'll need to adjust to that in many different ways, knowing that we need to understand that we need to both be taken care of today, but also planning for when we can come out. Hopefully a vaccine will be there. I'm sure there will be a vaccine. Now the argument is it 6 months, 12 months, or 2 years? That's going to be the issue, and you need a little bit of luck in that regard. But I think it's this focus and this thinking about how to do things that it's going to become very important. So I will tell you at CTisus, you will notice that we have talks like this, and we'll have some extra Facebook Lives on different topics as necessary. And also, I mentioned we're bringing the speaker series onto CTisus Live. But also, I think we are putting up the lectures. Fortunately, I was ahead of the game doing lectures and quizzes. So I have my quizzes done early for May and June because we need to be together to do the quizzes in terms of recording, though I think I know how to do it remotely. But that's May and June, and then we have lectures through the end of August, and hopefully we'll be in business by then. But we are putting up content on AI. We're working hard. I know we've now been able to connect through work to be able to do our AI stuff. So that becomes very, very important to us. The ability to do our research. I think many people are home with really nothing much to do, and I think that's kind of problematic because there's only so much you can stay inside. There's only so much you could be away. I was speaking to a colleague yesterday and says, well, their volumes are down, and that's bad. And then what's even worse is there are no meetings to go to, except for the meetings on COVID. We go over and over the same things. But there are no meetings. No one's presenting academically. The Renken would have been in a couple weeks. I know I was supposed to be in France speaking at a meeting the last week of April. We were speaking at meetings in Washington. Our own course, the end of May in Nashville, is not going to happen because, again, we'd love to have it. We had a great hotel, great rates, great time, great place, great speakers. Alec Megabo, Marilyn Siegel. I love those guys. Now, I spoke to Alec the other day in Maryland, but, we're not going to be together. We're not going to be in the same place, and we're not going to be doing the meeting remotely in this, in that sense. But I think this focusing needs to change. Now, if you ask me what things are going to be really big, I'm reading from home right now. There are teleradiology companies, but most people read from work. I think you can read from home, and I think it proves it, though I tell you I do read a lot slower, and I don't have my really good monitors, so I guess you could buy those extra monitors for at home. But what happens when you read from home, there's no socializing, quite frankly. And the whole educational mission, I'm at Hopkins, an academic center, we teach residents and fellows. You can't teach residents when you're sitting at home. You can't teach residents when you're 6 feet away or in another room. You're trying to do so. You need to be sitting next to the resident, like breathing the same air, essentially touching chairs, as might have it. But you can't be doing teaching like that. You can't be doing teaching remotely. Remote teaching is in college. Maybe you have a professor who lectures from the front of the room, but it's that close contact, that integration, discussing, the interaction that is critical. You can't do that when you're home. You can't do that when you're doing social separation. That's a very big problem. So education, training, teaching all become a little bit problematic in that new environment. So it's going to be a question. Yes, you can do teleradiology. Bandwidth is there, computers are there, but the question is going to be, how do you do everything else? That's a really tough question. I think other things, meetings. Now, we've been 37 years, I've mentioned before, about doing academic meetings remotely, and we were going to have one in Nashville, we're going to have one in the spring, in the fall, in Las Vegas, in winter, in Orlando, but right now everything's on hold. Now, I know meetings have done poorly the last bunch of years, everyone's meetings, because people haven't been going to meetings, lack of resources, time. You can go through 100 different reasons, but I wonder now, if you don't have meetings for a year or so, will people just say, I didn't like those meetings anyway, I don't feel like going. Or people, maybe they'll say the reverse is, oh my God, I sure miss going to a meeting. But I have a feeling, as resources dry up, as practices will have this rough spot and they don't have money for CME, people will be doing for the next couple of years everything online. If you do everything online, you're probably not going to come back to meetings in person. So I think that's going to be another issue. And that's going to be another change. I really do see that. I wonder if perhaps the COVID-19, one of the changes that will not go away is the elimination of meetings in person, that everything will be online. The skill sets, the tools and everything are there to be able to do meetings online. And that, I think, is going to be a big change. It may not be a great change. Again, the whole method of academics is based on that touchy-feely, going to meetings, meeting people, socializing, networking, all the things you were told to do and that you enjoy. I don't need to network to get promoted, but It's so good to see many of my friends and see many of you at meetings and talk to people and learn a lot from people and just be able to interact with people. I think it's great that I could speak to you, and I will speak to, this lecture will be heard by 20,000 people over the next couple of days. That's far more than me sitting in a room speaking to 200 people. But, you know, there's something about sitting here with, you see all my toys in the back there, which I've collected. It's one thing sitting here with the toys, it's another thing sitting there with you in a room. And I think it's great to have the toys, and I'm happy to see them at night after a long day perhaps, but and do some writing in the room. But you know, it's the connectivity that all of us really live for. I think people in academics especially really like getting out there and teaching and training and sharing information and learning, this constant learning. I think if you're only going to be home, now a lot of people do teleradiology, so it must work. People do, I think, like it to some degree. There's certain conveniences, there's certain logistics that work well for many people depending on their lifestyle. People with small kids, people who want to work with night owls, where it's easy to work at night, they hate working during the day. One of our old fellows told me that they were just born that they don't like to get up till 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Well, that's wonderful. You're a night hawk. You can work at night, and then you're really just perfect. You're the dream candidate for a group who needs to cover nights. So let's see. It's a good time to ask questions. Cassandra, hello from Peds. Cassandra's one of our terrific texts, and she's over in Peds today, I guess. And from Christopher, thanks for the splenic lecture. I appreciate that. And so we will keep you up to date on the COVID things. Again, we'll publish and give you key references like this article today I mentioned that's worthwhile reading about where they think radiology is going to go from a clinical perspective in terms of volumes and in terms of finances, which is hot off the presses. And we'll keep you informed that there's more information on CT of COVID, how to use it, how to use CT. And again, many of the topics that relate to the problem at hand. On the other hand, we're going to try not to just get so narrow in our focus and be the same as everybody. You know, you can see many wonderful things. Radiology has done a tremendous job. Some of the other journals, Lippincott, Elsevier has made available all of the material on their journals. So people have been really good on the science side. People are sharing. Let's see what else. Hi from sunny Florida, Lori Hines. Lori is a apps person for Siemens. So I guess Lori is, I guess it's good to be in Florida because Siemens people like GE, Philips, whoever else you can think of, are not going around training. Maybe we can get Lori, she can give a lecture on the Facebook thing. You know, Tony Cook, who comes and speaks at a lot of meetings from Siemens, maybe I should get him to do a Facebook Live giving you some information about how he does training. I think we are looking at ways of doing that. I think for me it'd be very, very important to have, you know, whatever training we can provide people. So again, I do ask this, but people aren't very good at responding over the years. If you have any topics you'd like me to discuss, let us know. Email me personally or put it on the website. We look at everything that gets posted. You have any discussions you want to hear, any people you would like me to interview or you'd like to have them come lecture, we're happy to do that. So we're here basically as a resource to try to meet everyone's needs, and as with COVID-19 the needs are changing, and we're trying to maintain structure, trying to maintain the quality of the material, the broad spectrum of information we can provide, and meet your needs. So with that, if no one asks me any questions, and I do have to admit, this will probably be one of those talks where people ask me questions the second I sign off, but if not, I'm just going to sign off. Thank everybody for their attention. Thank Facebook for giving this new program, which makes it more difficult for me to figure out how to use it. It was before it's just one button and you didn't touch anything. Now you have to touch a bunch of things. But hopefully it has a lot of cool features, and someday we're going to learn how to use those features. So with that, have a great day and see you soon. Take care and be safe.